Hello, welcome to this webcast in which we're going to have a quick look at some of the new features in the latest version of AXIS Core. That's AXIS version 4.6. Before I start on the looking at the functionality, I want to have a look at this diagram which shows the relationship between AXIS Core and AXIS templates. Now AXIS Core provides the generic functionality that's used by all hydrocarbon accounting applications supported by AXIS, and that includes data handling functions, auditing, workflow and automation, calculation processing and reporting, whereas the templates provide the specific functionality that's required for a particular hydrocarbon accounting application. In today's demonstration, we're going to be using the AXIS production template. So the features we want to have a look at today are in the workflow and automation area, feature of notifications. We're also going to have a look at a new method of presenting auditing data, and we're going to have a look at report publishing. Okay, so this is the AXIS homepage, and the first feature we want to have a look at is notifications. Now, notifications is part of the workflow functionality of AXIS, and it's the purpose behind it is where in a multi-user system we have users with different roles responsible for different actions. The notification function can inform a user when they are required to perform a particular action, or when there's something that needs to come to their notice, or an intervention they need to make. You'll see at the top right corner there's this symbol which is related to notifications. It shows how many outstanding notifications I as a user have, and if I click on here, this shows the list. So we've got a couple of examples set up. The first one is quite a common one in AXIS production. It's related to well tests, and often there's more than one role involved in the process of recording and approving well tests in AXIS production. So one role, typically an operator, is responsible for capturing the well test data and creating the record, and then a separate role, an engineer, typically reviews that record and approves it. So with notifications, we can the system can inform the engineer when there is a new well test that they are required to look at and either approve or reject. So the function, when a new well test is created with a provisional status, it generates a notification and serves that to the role that needs to look at it. And so it appears in the list on this screen, but also these notifications can be emailed, so even if you're not logged onto the system, you'll get them. So if we just click on this and look at the detail of it, so it's telling us that a provisional well test was created for this well on that date, and what I have to do is to save the same well test within status of approved, and in fact I can click here, and that takes me directly to the screen where I can see the well test, and here it is. Here's the new one with this provisional status. So I can review this well test, look at the rates versus the previous test for the same well, and if I'm happy with it, I'll go into this well test and I'm going to approve it. So I'll just set the status to approved, and now when I save it, you'll see here that the notification count goes down. So because this test is now approved, the system knows that that means that the notification has been cleared and automatically clears it and the count goes down. And if I go back to the notification screen, you'll see that that notification has gone. So that's one use of notifications, and the notification function is extremely flexible, generic, and it can be used to create these messages on a whole wide range of different events and that can occur within the system. So another example is when the system has automatically carried out a task and has encountered some kind of error condition which requires an intervention from a user. So that's what the second example is looking at. In this case, the metadata approval process has failed. So just have a look at that. So it's telling me metadata approval process failed for the 31st of August. So I have to identify the error that caused the failure and rerun it in order to clear this notification. So in fact, I'm going to shortcut this and go straight to the periodic data screen showing me the data that has caused this error, and we can see it here. This is the choke position for this well has got an invalid data. It's a negative number. So now in this case, I know that actually this is an instrumentation error. The choke position hasn't actually changed on this well, so I can correct this data immediately. So I can just type in the correct value. Like I say, it hasn't changed. And I can also enter a comment. Okay, so I found a validation error, I've corrected it. And actually while I'm here, I'm going to show another feature that's new to Access Core 4.6. And that's this feature where when you hover over an item of data on a screen like this, it brings up the full set of information about that particular data point. So for auditing purposes, AXIS is recording a lot of information about each individual item of data, including validation status, any comments that have been entered against it, who last updated it and when. And all that information is now summarized on this little panel which appears whenever you hover over an item of data like that. Okay, so back to the notification. So I've corrected the invalid data, but it's not yet approved, so the notification hasn't yet cleared. If I go back to the notification, I need to rerun the approval process. So I click there. This takes me to the screen which I can use to rerun the approval process. This is an automated approval function. You can see it's failed. If I run it again, this time it succeeds, and now the notification count has dropped down to 0. Okay, so that's notifications. A lot of application for that feature in all kinds of ways for the workflow within AXIS. Okay. Next thing we're going to look at is a way of collecting data. So this is something which current users of AXIS will know that we have this selection boxes on AXIS screens, and in previous versions of AXIS, you'd select columns on the screen, and then you could either graph or export or to download the data you'd selected. But the disadvantage of that was when you moved from one screen to another, your selections were lost. So now we've introduced a way of persisting your selections. And to show what I mean by that, if I let's select this column, so the allocated oil volume for this well, and you'll see that this selected data points panel pops up now down in the bottom right corner showing the column that I've selected. And if I move off, so now I go to look at a different well, so now looking at well 4, I could select the same column there and that gets added to my selected data points. I'll do the same with a third well. So now I've created a little group of data from 3 different objects, and I can save that group if I want to refer to it again, or I can click show data and this takes me to a screen which is just showing the selected data, and I'll just expand the date range, and now I can do all the usual features that I've got within AXIS with this data set. For example, if I graph it, here we can see that. So that's an easy way of selecting a set of data across from any object in the database and quickly putting it into a group which I can then manipulate. Okay, lastly, I'm going to have a look at a new feature related to reporting. So we've got a report here in the AXIS production template, a daily allocation report, and you can see that for this date I'm looking at here, the 30th of August, this report has been published and version 1.0 of the report, and I can download that and see the report that was previously generated and published. But if something changes, if let's say I have to make a correction to some data on this particular day, a rerun allocation, I may need to regenerate the report. And so I can do that. Obviously I have to unapprove the data, rerun the allocation, reapprove it again, and then I can generate a second version of the report. And you see when I do that, I now have version 2.0 draft. And I can download that version of the report, have a look at it, and if I'm happy with that version of the report and I want to send it out, I can publish it with this button, and that now becomes version 2.0 published. But version 1.0 is still available, so obviously that's very helpful for keeping track of changes to reports that you have to send out over time. Okay, that's it. That was just a quick look at some of the features of AXIS 4.6. I hope you found that useful. If there's any more information you need, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. Contact details are on the website.